Imagine waking to the sound of boots crunching on gravel outside your home. Not the light step of a neighbor, but the heavy, deliberate march of soldiers who have come with orders to erase your existence. Before you can gather your children, the canvas walls of your lodge are ripped open. Rough hands seize your arms. The butt of a rifle smashes into your ribs, and a voice in a language you barely understand shouts for you to move. Around you, the village erupts into chaos. Women are dragged by their hair into the dust, their screams cut short by blows. Elders are kicked to the ground, their faces ground into the dirt beneath military boots. Children are yanked from their mothers' arms, their small bodies thrown into wagons like sacks of grain. The air fills with the stench of burning hide as soldiers set fire to the lodges, the flames fed by oil poured from tin cans carried for this very purpose. Some captives are bound hand and foot, lashed to posts and left to bake under the desert sun until their skin blisters and splits. Others are forced to kneel while bayonets are pressed against their necks, a promise of what will come if they resist. There are men whipped until their backs are ribbons of flesh, women beaten with rawhide until they can no longer stand, and warriors shot in the legs so they cannot flee, then left to bleed slowly into the dirt. Those who cry out for mercy are mocked, their pain treated as sport. All the while, the soldiers laugh, as if this is not the destruction of a people, but the fulfillment of a duty. The white flag they carried into the village hours earlier now lies trampled in the dust, its pretense of peace revealed for what it always was, a lure to bring the Apache into reach of their rifles. By the time the sun sets, the fires will have consumed the heart of the community, and the survivors, if they can be called that, will be chained and driven toward San Carlos, the so-called reservation that is nothing more than a prison in the desert. This was not a single act of cruelty. It was part of a calculated system of conquest. Raids disguised as negotiations, torture as a tool of compliance, starvation as a weapon, and the systematic breaking of body and spirit until nothing remained but submission. For the Apache, this was the true face of the white man's war. Not the clean clash of armies, but the slow, deliberate unmaking of a people. I still remember the day they came, as clearly as if the smoke were still curling into the sky above me. I was a young mescalero Apache then, still believing in the strength of our bows and the protection of the mountain spirits my father prayed to before each hunt. Our land stretched from the Sierra Blanca to the Gila River, dotted with springs and trails as familiar to us as our own heartbeat. We hunted deer and antelope, gathered cactus fruit, told the stories of our ancestors around the fire. But after the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, our world began to shrink. The land was claimed by a distant government whose flag flew over new forts, silver mines, and farms planted where our hunting grounds had been. They slaughtered the buffalo, dammed our streams, forbade us to leave the reservation they called San Carlos. We were not meant for confinement. We slipped away to hunt, to visit sacred places, to breathe the free air. For that, they called us criminals. The army came to punish us, to bring us in by force. In the autumn of 1874, Captain Samuel Cutter rode at the head of his cavalry into our valley, sent to end our defiance. We saw the dust of their approach at sunset, the white flag fluttering at the front. Cutter spoke of peace, food, safety. Some of our elders warned it was a trap, but memories of past slaughter made others fear open defiance. We gathered to meet them, laying aside our weapons as a sign of good faith. We sat by the fire, the smell of roasting meat in the air. Cutter smiled, but his eyes were cold. In the middle of his words, he gave a signal. Rifles cracked, 3 warriors fell before they could stand. The rest of us were beaten down, our arms wrenched behind us, rope cutting into our wrists. The white flag had done its work. Then came the looting and burning. Soldiers dragged women and children from the lodges, striking them with rifle butts. Flames leapt into the night sky, smoke thick enough to sting our eyes. A mother clutching her baby was shot in the back as she ran. The child was taken. Cutter's order was clear: leave no warrior alive. The wounded were finished with bayonets. They were not content to defeat us. They meant to erase us. I ran with Taza, the chief's son, into the trees. The moonlight glinted on the rifles behind us, the pounding of hooves closing in. Cutter had promised his men bounties for Apache scalps. Taza took a bullet in the shoulder but kept running. We climbed toward the cliffs. Another shot, and Taza pitched forward into the void, his eyes blazing not with fear but fury. I never saw him again. By dawn, they had me in their grip. We were tied and thrown into wagons for the long haul to San Carlos. The desert was merciless. Cold that cracked the skin at night. Heat that burned by day. Those who stumbled were left behind for the vultures. At San Carlos, the air was thick with sickness. Rations were spoiled, water foul. Leaving without permission meant a beating or a bullet. Hunting was forbidden. Children died in the dirt. At night, drunken soldiers prowled through the camp. Complaints brought nothing but more pain. Freedom was gone. Only survival remained. For the Apache, freedom was life itself. San Carlos was its opposite. A corral, a slow death. The campaign against us was not just fought with bullets, but with hunger, disease, and despair. The night of Cutter's raid was one battle in a longer war to break us. In breaking us, they thought they could erase us. Years later, what haunts me most is not the sound of gunfire, but a single cry. A boy, somehow spared, stood on a hill above our burned village and howled into the wind. It was a call to the dead, to the living, to the mountains. The soldiers laughed. The Apache wept. That howl promised our story would not die, even if we did. The raid of that autumn was not unique. Again and again, the white flag masked the rifle. Treachery bred mistrust. Mistrust bred revenge. The army spoke of necessity, but necessity is a word that hides many sins. In the end, our defeat came not just from battles lost, but from the destruction of the life we had always known. The open range was fenced. The hunter was caged, and the people were made dependent on those who had taken everything. The land is quiet now, but the wind still carries the scent of sagebrush. If you listen, you might hear more than the rustle of leaves. You might hear the echo of that howl, defiant, unbroken, refusing to fade.